Hey folks, Ian, Part-Time Experience, welcome back. Last time we talked about essentially some of the smaller building blocks when it comes to defining your own custom campaign world and how you essentially need to focus on the immediate area that your players are going to deal with. So think of that as more of like making the outlines of the picture, and this one is more for coloring in the picture and essentially helping define the overall canvas a little bit more, or at least a small section of it. So again, we're sticking with more of what the players are going to directly interact with, what they're going to deal with, and that's it. It kind of expands out further from there later on when you get to that. But at the moment, that's still our main focus, just the immediate area that your players are going to deal with, as that's going to be most important to them. So, kingdoms. Kingdoms have their own cultures. Essentially, think of it as, medieval or Victorian France versus England. They had a lot of similarities, but there was a lot of differences between the two, and there has been nothing but animosity between the two ever since. But another key thing to think about is that the culture of a kingdom doesn't have to be racial based. Uh, Here in America, we have a lot of subcultures, but generally it's like, no, you're American. It doesn't matter what color your skin is, you're American. It's simple as that. And I kind of like that idea more as well when it comes to fantasy worlds, in the sense that the culture is less based upon what race that the person is from, but rather where they grew up, what traditions they took in and essentially continue to practice, because that is the main aspect of a lot of things. So, good case in point of a culture as well as a subculture is the Kingdom of Darmus. The Kingdom of Darmus in my campaign world is known as the Holy Kingdom. It is the birthplace of the Holy Order. They often act like the Spanish Inquisition, and they primarily go around enforcing, via military power, enforcing their doctrines upon other kingdoms. And because they are one of the largest kingdoms and the most powerful kingdoms, they're able to do that for the most part. And it's like, no, you can rule yourself, but religiously speaking, these are the only approved gods, and these ones you're not going to worship them at all. If you worship them, we're going to exterminate them and every follower of them. So that's the Darmisian kind of way, and they consider everyone inside of their borders, regardless of their race, because they not only have humans, elves, dwarves, and gnomes, but they also have Loxodon, Tabaxi, Leonid, and a few other races that are not, essentially, would not normally be considered from that continent, but from other continents and originally other cultures. But because they moved there and they ingratiated themselves into society, they don't consider them a subculture. They consider them Darmisian. They're from Darmus. They are Darmisian. However, those subcultures inside of Darmus may have their own ideals and may consider themselves separate. Case in point is the Ishaldans. They are technically Darmisian. Their city-state is in the borders of Darmus. So, to every outsider, and to Darmus as a whole, they are Darmisian. But if you call an Ishaldan Darmisian, you're getting a foot to the face, or at least a fist, because they don't like the rest of Darmus. They are very xenophobic. They are very zealot in their own rights, but essentially they don't like outsiders. They don't like outsiders telling them what to do either. They are primarily a warlike people that focus their worship on a singular god. Yes, that god is part of the pantheon, but to them it doesn't matter. It's like, no, we only worship this one. This is our tradition. We are its chosen people. He is our patron deity. No others can compare. Only this one. And that's pretty much how they move forward and consider themselves. So again, they consider themselves not Darmisian, they're Ishaldan, and they are very strong in that belief that they are separate, even though they are essentially a part of the same kingdom. But that's essentially how the racial or non-racial forms of culture and subculture can work, because the Ishaldans, while they are primarily human and elven, they do have other races there. It's just they tend to be primarily human and elven as far as their leadership goes. Darmus, race doesn't matter as much, because it's like, nope, you're Darmisian. Your family's been here for like 5 generations, and you worship the same gods we worship, and you eat the same foods we eat. So yeah, no, you're Darmisian. It's simple as that. as well as religion itself is also a key part when it comes to building your own kingdom, determining that religion. If is there a primary religion that everyone follows? Is the religion that everyone has pantheonic, or is it a singular, deity? Is there multiple deities, but different religions and so on? And essentially, you have to determine, is there like a state religion, or is it more like based upon who the monarch is or who's currently ruling? Things like that. So culture and religion kind of go hand in hand and are very important when it comes to further defining your kingdom when you're building it. Sorry, I've got notes over here. Oh, major landmarks. Major landmarks are also very important because, again, they kind of add a bit more detail, as well as some landmarks will also affect how a culture develops. So if you've got like a major mountain, like, smack dab middle of the kingdom, then mining and, stonework is probably going to be very important to your people, as well as, being able to live off of the mountain, or maybe even in the mountain, because again, it's a major landmark for them, and therefore it's there. Another major landmark might be a gorge, where it's like a huge gash in the land. They essentially built their way around it and essentially have learned to coexist and also thrive off of it. So you have to take those landmarks into essentially how they would further develop the culture, or even negatively impact them as well, now that I think about it. But landmarks don't have to just be natural forming. It also could be, major areas or statues, or essentially think of like one of the wonders of the world. That kingdom could have one of them. Or it could be like, a major statue that's dedicated to a major person or event or so on, which goes into the next one also when it comes to defining your kingdom: events, holidays. You could have holidays just about anything, not just the normal harvest or the sproutings or anything like that, but holidays in regards to like major events that had happened in the past. It's like, oh, we're celebrating, the Battle of Last Light. Last Light was this small outpost that, fought against the invading forces, and the last light went out 3 days before the battle ended, and the people that fought there fought tooth and nail to keep the dark tides out, and so on. So now they celebrate the people who lost their lives, at the Battle of the Last Light. Things like that, major events that happen throughout history. And you don't need a lot of these, by the way. You probably only need about 10 to 15, depending on how old you want your kingdom to be and how expansive you want your kingdom to be. And, again, going back to the whole culture versus subculture, the subcultures might have their own smaller holidays that they celebrate that other parts of the kingdom don't. Because, well, depending on where you grew up, it could also determine whether or not you celebrate something. Maybe the southern side of the kingdom focuses much more on harvests, so they actually celebrate the harvest, versus the northern side, which is primarily rocky and mountainous, so they don't celebrate the harvest, because they don't really have a lot of harvest to have. They focus primarily on trade in order to get the resources that they need. But yeah, those are the main things that you need to focus on when it comes to essentially further detailing out your kingdom. It's culture, whether it's going to be racial or not, and if you're going to have a subculture, religion, which is a part of culture, but at the same time can be very separate, as well as how it's practiced and how it's essentially important to the people themselves. Major landmarks and how those might affect both positively and negatively the peoples of your kingdom. And then the major events and holidays that may affect the people, or may even just be folktale that the people still talk about to this very day. Anyways, that's all I want to talk about this time. Laters.